Welcome in to another episode of Answering the Bell with me, Stefania Bell. On today's episode, we're going to take a look at a couple of big name players who could impact your fantasy roster if they return this week. Justin Jefferson and Achane have been on injured reserve, and we know they're coming back soon, but will it be in time for week 11? And looking back at last week, two big name players on the same team, Kyler Murray and James Conner. Did Kyler Murray answer the bell in his return from ACL surgery? You ready? Let's go. Let's start with a player that might have been drafted number 1 overall by you, as he was by many people who play fantasy football, and that's Vikings wide receiver Justin Jefferson. Now, he hasn't been available for you for several weeks because he's been on injured reserve with a hamstring strain, but the team did designate him for return, opening his practice window last week. So we started to get excited about the possibility of him coming back, and believe me, the Vikings are excited too. Jefferson said he wants to make sure he's 100% at full strength before he takes the field. But the player also has to feel like he's ready to return, and he said, I'm not going out there at 80 to 90%. I need to feel like I'm at 100%. We know from the NFL health and safety data that at least 1 in 6 hamstring strains will result in a recurrence of that injury within the same season. And Jefferson does not want to be a part of that statistic. Now here's where it starts to get interesting. After the Sunday night game against the Broncos, the Vikings next play in Monday Night Football in Week 12 against the Bears. Could Jefferson be activated then? Perhaps. But they also have a bye in Week 13, and if they're not quite ready to put him on the field, it's possible that Jefferson waits it out until after the bye week and returns in Week 14. Either way, the way the Vikings have been performing, the way Justin Jefferson's recovery has been going, and the confidence that the entire team has and the support that Jefferson has from both the rehab staff and the coaching staff tells you that when he comes back, we're going to expect him to be the Justin Jefferson that we saw pre-injury. Now let's take a look at Achane, the rookie running back who has so electrified the Miami Dolphins. And look, they only know speed over there in Miami, and he certainly fits the bill. We didn't see him in week 1, didn't really know what to expect. He'd shown us a little flash of what he could do in the preseason. And in week 2, he only put up 5 yards. Not a big deal. Well, here's what he did the next 3 weeks. 203 yards rushing in week 3, 101 yards rushing in week 4, and 151 yards rushing in week 5, the week in which he actually injured his knee and was subsequently placed on injured reserve. To give you an idea of how special Achane is, his yards per carry average is the highest in NFL history through a team's first 5 games. So, when are we to expect him back? Well, his practice window was open this week, and Coach Mike McDaniel said he'd rather be playing football than observing it like he has been. They also noted that he could have come back sooner if they had put him in a brace and felt like they just wanted him to kind of play through the injury as he tried to heal it, but they didn't think that was the right way to go for the young rookie. So instead, they opted for the injured reserve route, let him get fully healthy, fully strong, come back, be able to play without a brace. And I think he's going to test it in practice this week and could be available for your fantasy roster on Sunday. I know it won't be a moment too soon. I've missed having him on mine. Achane is expected to return on Sunday when the Dolphins face the Raiders. So it's not just the players that we're looking forward to coming back. We also like to look back at the players who've recently returned from injury and see if they're living up to our expectations. So let's take a look at quarterback Kyler Murray, who returned in week 10, 11 months to the day after tearing his ACL. And boy, did he not only live up to the expectations, he exceeded them. You know, there were people who thought Kyler Murray might not ever play it down for the Arizona Cardinals, that he would become a trade asset and depart before he ever saw the field. And then there were those of us who thought he most definitely would come back, but the question was when. And then when everyone felt ready, he took the field against Atlanta. Now keep in mind, there is data that tells us how quarterbacks do when they are returning from ACL reconstruction surgery. And you see here data via the predictors.com that talks about passing versus rushing for quarterbacks who are coming back from an ACL injury. Now, passing yards decrease on the average of 15% for the first 5 or 6 games back. That's not that surprising, but it's the rushing yards that really stand out. And typically there is an 80% drop in rushing yards for NFL quarterbacks. And they're not all built the same. We know Kyler Murray is a running quarterback. We know he's got the ability to be mobile as a scrambler, but also for designed runs and make plays in the red zone. So you definitely don't expect him to showcase that the first time he takes the field against a real defense who is intent on bringing him down. And yet, he did. Now, there were a lot of opportunities during the game where he showed us that he could move well, move in the pocket, move around the pocket, and protect himself. But it wasn't until late the game when he really put on a display that I think captured everything, at least for me, that I needed to see to know that Kyler Murray was officially back. The Arizona Cardinals had perhaps the best view of this as they took an overhead shot of Kyler Murray on the field. And if you look at that entire play, you will see Kyler Murray flip his hips in the beginning. You will see him evade the pressure. He runs one direction, then turns and runs reverse, gets across the field, and then moves up the field. He gains 13 yards on the play, but the total scramble was for over 60 yards. And if that's not enough, he threw himself forward to get that first down, stood up, and calmly pointed straight ahead, confidently knowing that he'd gotten the first down. For us, what did it show us? That he could move every direction, that he did not have apprehension, that he could accelerate, that he could rotate, that he could decelerate, and that he could go to the ground and get up and be just fine. Not only did he check all the boxes there, he also totaled 33 rushing yards in the game. If you go back and average his rushing yards across last season before he was hurt, he averaged 38 yards per game. That drop-off is only about 13%. Nothing near the 80% that the data tells us there should be. So how confident am I in Kyler Murray? 100%. He may not look like that every single week, but he's gotten over the hurdles that most athletes face when they're coming back from major injury. And we know that he is capable of doing those things week in and week out. That's it for today's episode of Answering the Bell. Thanks so much for joining me. If you like what you see here, please leave a comment, like the video, and you can subscribe to our NFL on ESPN YouTube page. You can also follow me for more content on X at Stefania_ESPN. Thanks again. Good luck in week 11.